Welcome back to the episode of Enlightning. With me, Sayyid RAZA, and we're joined once again by brother Muhammad ADEEL from Iran. Today we are discussing the issue of ghusl al-mayyit, following on from our discussion last week just on ghusl and the importance and the philosophy behind it. Why is it necessary to perform the ablution of a dead body? What are the reasonings behind it? That's what we touched upon. So we're going to be continuing that discussion, and hopefully we can inform you guys of why it is necessary, and you will become aware of the steps needed to carry out ghusl al-mayyit, and also the basic concepts of how we should prepare for death, what necessary steps we should take, and how to be constantly aware of death, whether it be dealing with it with friends and family, or preparing yourself both physically and mentally. And obviously, if you guys have any questions or any burning desires or any statements that you'd like to make, please feel free to call in. The number should be on the screen. We'll be more than happy to take your phone calls. So, Brother Muhammad, continuing on our discussion. So, I mean, in general, death, is something which can be very scary, for people that aren't aware of it or haven't experienced it through losing relatives or family members. I mean, what would you say is the best way to prepare for death, both physically and mentally, and how should one be at ease with the idea and the concept of death?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In Islam, as you know, that death is not an end to our existence, it's a passage. Mm-hmm. Throughout our life, it's our job to be prepared for the time that we depart from this world. It begins from the day of when we are baligh, when we reach the age of puberty. As you know, for boys, for men it's at the age of 15, and for women, the girls, it's at the age of 9. So when that time reaches both male and female, they have to realize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed certain conditions, certain laws for them, mm-hmm. for prayer, for zakat, for khums, for hajj, for zakat, everything. There is a time and there is wajibat upon them. And everything after the age of puberty, after when you are baligh, you are accountable for them actions. Mm-hmm. So if we pray, you pray for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you don't pray, that means that you have decreased or declined Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's law here. So what we have to learn is that we need to do things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed for us on this earth when we reach the age of puberty. Obviously, before we reach the age of puberty, we have to practice. We can't just perform salat when we hit the age of 15. No, mm-hmm. We have to perform, we have to get ready, and we have to know how to pray the salat the right way. And obviously there are many conditions within salat, where if one is at home, how you should pray; if one is a traveler, how you should pray. So we have to know every fundamental law in prayer as well as other deeds. Imam Ali alayhi salam has described the preparation for death as he said that fulfilling the obligations, one thing, mm-hmm. refraining from the forbidden acts, sure. and acquiring noble character. So these three things Imam Ali alayhi salam has said to prepare for death. When one prepares for death, he knows that he has to fulfill the obligations. He knows that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you two choices. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not said that I have placed you on this earth so you have to do this. No. Mm-hmm. He has given you two choices. He has given you two directions, two ultimate weights that you have to see which one weighs more. So he has said that prayer, when you pray for me, pray in the right and utmost manner. Mm-hmm. If you don't pray, these are the consequences. So we have to learn that the choice that we make is according to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala desires. This also is according when someone realizes that someone is in front of them and how to act. So for example, when someone is in a gathering, he cannot start shouting, he cannot misbehave, or he cannot say bad words to other people, or argue with other people. There is consequences for that. There is something called the manners. There is something called code of conduct. So we have to realize that a person, when we look at our beautiful examples are the Ahlul Bayt, when they approached the community, when they approached the Ummah, when they were giving sermons, how they used to give it, how they used to act when a child was in front of them, how they used to act when there was an elder in front of them. So we have to realize that when we act accordingly to the Ahlul Bayt, because we have to strive our hardest to reach the level of perfection. The level of perfection doesn't mean that you reach the level of the infallibility. No, it means your own perfection. So if you have strived to work for something, that shows that you have made yourself strive for something that you wanted really. So that is your perfection within you, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will credit you for that, the strive that you have done there. So before death, it is recommended for you to write a will,
sure,
either on paper or tell someone verbally. But it's also best to write the will and also give tell other people, inform other people that this is a will, obviously to your family. And the most important thing that you have to do in your will is that you have to tell them that the obligations that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made wajib upon you, did you fulfill them or not? So if you have not fulfilled them, you have to tell them this is approximately how much years or how many months or how many weeks I have not prayed, so that after me people can perform them. Yes. Sure. So that's one of the most important things that you have to realize. The qada prayers, not only prayers, but it's wajib upon you to also tell other people about your fasting. If you've not fasted for many years or months maybe, you have to tell them to perform them fast so that you complete your obligation, as well as the pilgrimage of Hajj. It's wajib upon every Muslim to perform the Hajj once in their lifetime. So if that person hasn't performed it, you can, from your heritage, you can tell them to perform the Hajj on behalf of you.
So this will, does it have to be written in the presence of witnesses, or can you do it in your own? Or?
You can do it on your own.
Okay.
But then obviously that will has to be given to your family so that they can see what you've written. And obviously when they say verbally, means that it makes it clear for what a person has written on paper.
Sure. So what do you do in the scenario that a person isn't mentally competent enough to write a will, or they haven't written a will? So in that sense, what do you do with their assets, or Islamically, and how do you go about sort of judging or deciding how many qaza they have?
In that state, obviously, when a person is mentally disabled or mentally aroused into that realm that he cannot speak or he cannot write, there is always a condition before that. A person doesn't, maybe there are some cases where a person is born disabled or is born with difficulties to read and write, but there's also scenarios where a person is in stable condition, a person is can hear, eat, can write, can hear everything, and there's a time in life where suddenly something happens. So you have to be ready. Islam teaches us to be ready at every single time. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, as soon as you reach the age of puberty till the time of death, you have to prepare for death.
Right, okay.
You have to, everything that you do, every action that you do is accountable for your actions. That's why when we pray salat, as you mentioned before, we have to pray it at the best of our intentions, as though we are praying our last prayer. That's why Imam, the infallible, have said that, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala urges the believers to refrain from the forbidden acts, refrain from the unlawful acts, refrain from the things that make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unhappy or displeases Him in any way possible. So these are the things that we have to recognize within ourselves. The other most important thing is that within our life we tend to make other people unhappy sometimes in our life. We have to ask forgiveness from them, vice versa also. We have to forgive and forget. We have to, any grudges that we hold against anyone else, that we have against anyone else, we have to forgive them, because we know that we are going to die and we know that they are going to die also. They need to ask forgiveness and we need to ask forgiveness also. So these are the things that a person should do before he prepares for his death.
Right, okay. And you said the will writing concept, so when do you recommend a person should write a will?
The best time obviously to write a will is that when he is sane, when he is in his when he's in that position where he knows everything. He knows that I have this amount of money, I have this amount of wealth, I have this house, I have this house, I have this thing. Anything valuable that he has, he knows, and he's accountable for his actions. He can then write a will, because we know that any time we can die. We can die anytime. As soon as we walk out of this building, we encounter something, and we might depart from this world. So we have to be ready. As soon as someone is accountable for his own deeds, that's when he should write a will. But there's another thing that needs to be mentioned here, is that it is recommended also by the infallibles that whenever we travel, we have to write a will, because no one knows, as we know, as everyone knows, that the time of death can happen to anyone at any time. So when one travels, he has to leave behind his will, just in case something does go not according to plan. So that's the best time for him to write.
So you've mentioned how we should prepare, the steps that we should take to prepare for death. So what do we do at the time of death? So for example, if someone has a terminal disease and they know they've only got a day or two to live, so what should they do in those 2 days? What is recommended by the Imams? And what does it say in Hadith?
When death reaches a person, he himself should either place his, he should lay down and face towards the Qibla. Meaning what? Meaning that he lies towards the Qibla. His soul, his feet soles have to face the Qibla. So as soon as he gets up, or as soon as he is upright in a position, he is facing the Qibla. If he cannot do it himself, he tells someone else to do it on his behalf. So this is the first step he has to do. As soon as death approaches him, he has to go into that position. The Ahl Sunnah differ from us. They say that you have to lie in a position where you are facing on the side, your body is facing the Qibla, whereas we say no, our souls have to face the Qibla. The second point is that it is recommended for us to repeat after someone. So if someone is passing away, someone else has to read the declaration of faith and the statement of faraj. Meaning what? The declaration of faith is in Arabic, which means to reconfirm the beliefs of one. So when someone is passing away, someone else can read the declaration of faith and the statement of faraj, and he has to repeat it. So because we know that when death approaches us and we enter the earth, the angels also ask us, who was your Lord? How many gods do you have? Who was your how many books did you have? Who is the rightful Imam? Who is the rightful Caliph? And who is the rightful Prophet? So we have to reconfirm that to ourselves so that we remember in the future. The declaration of faith goes by declaring that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one. And the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is the last messenger, and following the 12 Imams after that. رضيت بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبالقرآن كتابا وبالكعبة قبلة. That the Kaaba that we follow is our Qibla. وبعلي إماما وبالحسن والحسين وعلي ومحمد وجعفر وموسى وعلي ومحمد وجعفر وموسى وعلي ومحمد والخلف الصالح أئمة وسادة وقادة بهم تولى ومن أعدائهم تبرأ. So when he repeats that, when a person, if he can memorize it, it's good for him. If he doesn't have it memorized, he can use the book, and you'll find in all the Tawdil Masail or the Sayf al-Sajada, whatever dua book you can, or Mafatih al-Janan, and that person has to repeat it. The statement of Faraj is very clear. La ilaha illallah al-Halim al-Kareem, La ilaha illallah al-Ali al-Azim, Subhanallah as-samawati as-sab wal-ardin as-sab wa ma fihinna wa ma baynahunna wa rabbil arsh al-azim wa salamun ala al-mursaleen walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Basically confirming that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one, and that the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is given to the human mankind is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that there are heavens and earth, and that the confirmation of the heaven being there and the wrath of people who go against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have to be punished. So these are the things that a person has to repeat, the dead person, the dying person has to repeat after someone else.
Sure.
That's the second point. The third point is that it is recommended to move the dying person to his or her usual place of prayer. So for example, in your house, in anyone's house, a person is, when he gets home from work or whenever in the morning prayers, he has a specific place for prayer. It's recommended for the living person to take that dying person to that place, and so that he can do his ibadah, so that he becomes into that state where he's getting ready to depart and meet his Lord. That's the third thing. The fourth thing is, it's recommended for someone to recite the two surahs, Surah Al-Yasin, which you'll find in it's the 36th surah in the Holy Quran, and Surah Al-Safat, which is the following surah after Surah Al-Yasin, the 37th. So it's recommended the person who is watching the dying person, whether it be the family or friends, to read these two surahs besides his deathbed. And it's also recommended for you to, there are many mustahabbat acts that you should do, like for example dim the lights, so that he gets into that state of mind where he realizes that he's moving away from this world and he's leaving behind everything. So these are the things that are recommended for that human being.
So I mean, so we know leading up to death and the steps that an individual should take. So what should family and loved ones do after that person has passed away? What is the correct procedure that one should follow until the point of his burial or her burial?
The most important things that we realize that after the person's death is that we have to follow the criteria of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, and the Ahlul Bayt, how they perform the actions. By looking at the Islamic laws, we find that it's recommended upon us to, firstly, there are 8 things that we should do. The first step that we should do is close the eyes of a dead person. So if he has passed away, we should not leave his eyes opened. The second thing that we have to do is to close his mouth or her mouth, so that nothing enters the mouth and nothing departs from the mouth. The third thing is that we should tie the 2 jaws so that the mouth doesn't open, because we know that if we leave the mouth open, we close the mouth, but then that mouth could easily open again. So it's recommended for us to close the jaw lines, tie the jaw lines so that the mouth doesn't open again. The fourth thing that we need to do is to straighten his or her arms beside his legs. So on the side, we should place the arms on the side. The fifth thing is to straighten the legs.
Mm-hmm.
So the person shouldn't be cramped up or anything like that. You should straighten the legs.
Mm-hmm.
The sixth thing is to cover the dead body, so that no one else sees the dead body, or if, for example, if he has a disease, or if, for example, there's something, if he has a
disfigurement
or something, other people don't see it.
Yeah.
The seventh thing is to arrange his funeral or her funeral as soon as possible.
So is like a time frame that's recommended? Or?
As soon as possible means that as soon as you perform the ghusl, the hunut and the burial, you should place him inside the earth as soon as possible, meaning that there are different circumstances where there's accidental death and there's natural death.
Mm-hmm.
If accidental death where you are in an accident where the police also want the forensics or police want the post-mortem, then obviously you can delay that. But Islam recommends the dead person to be buried as soon as possible.
So if, for example, if a family had the option of carrying out a post-mortem, which would delay the burial, or not carrying out a post-mortem, and the burial would be, pretty much sooner, what would you say? What would you say is the appropriate action to take?
The appropriate action in that situation is dependent on the family itself.
Okay.
If the family want post-mortem, then you can delay it. If they don't want post-mortem, even if the police require it, if they don't want it, they should not go ahead with it, and they should bury the body as soon as possible. So it's totally dependent on the family of that dead person. So when a person follows these 8 steps, then he can move on to the stage after death. What will happen after death, after the death rituals? We see that after when we perform the closing of the eyes, the closing of the mouth, the tying of the jaw, placing, covering his dead body, placing the hands on the side, straightening the legs, then we move on to the second phase, which is to give him ghusl. The third thing is to give him hunut. Hunut basically means to place the scented camphor on the 7 different parts of the body, which is what? 7 different parts include the forehead, where the sujood is done, the 2 palms of your hands, your 2 knees, and your 2 toes. It's also mustahab to place it on your tip of your nose, because as some riwayats class that when you place your head on earth, you should also place the nose on the earth too. So this is a mustahab act that you should do. Then obviously the dafn, the burial of the person. We also class this as washing the body, shrouding the body, and the burying of the body. And these are the things that are recommended after death.
That's great. Thank you very much. I mean, hopefully that has been quite an enlightening show for you today, pun on the word. I mean, before we finish, because we've only got one minute, I'm just going to ask you one final question. So how is the ghusl actually given? Is it? I mean, if you keep it very brief, because we're very short on time. So one quick question. Okay.
Briefly, I can explain this to you. A dead person is given 3 ghusls. It's washed. It has to be washed by a Muslim person. If a Shia is dead, a Shia has to perform it. It's a Sunnah. He has to perform the Sunnah. The first washing of the dead body includes the water mixed with berry leaves, which is called the sidr water.
Okay.
The second washing, the ritual washing, is given by camphor, which is called kafur, in other words. The third ghusl is given by pure water. The method of doing the ghusl is exactly the same way you perform your normal ghusl.
Okay.
For example, your ghusl Jum'ah, your ghusl Janaba, exactly the same way. Washing of the head to the neck with niyyah. Every time you wash the body with these 3 waters, you have to make niyyah. Okay. Fine. So from the head to the neck, right side and the left side. The only difference is that the person is dead. Someone else is performing the ghusl for them in a laying position, whereas a living person is standing up and doing the ghusl.
Okay.
It's not recommended for the dead body to do ghusl irtimasi, where all the body is placed into water. It's recommended for him to do the ghusl tartibi, where it's step by step position.
Thank you very
Inshallah.
much. I'm sorry to cut you short.
No problem.
But thank you guys for joining us again this week for hopefully what's been an intriguing discussion about death. And hopefully you guys can join us next week, same time, on Friday, 5 to 6. Thank you for being with us today. Me, Sayyid RAZA Naqvi, and with Brother Muhammad ADEEL as well. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.